it's been on my mind really thinking about how and why people advocate for corporate charity so much. And this is what I'm starting to think. People advocate for corporate charity so much because it gives them an opportunity to feel good about themselves without them actually having to be charitable themselves. And just like think about California, for example. Think about liberals, for example. California was supposed to be the most progressive, most accepting, most non-discriminatory state in the United States. That's kind of unofficially. That's kind of what they try to stand for. They try to stand for acceptance and opportunity and no discrimination against illegal immigrants, all that stuff. But they have 25% of the homeless in their population. So California is 12% of the United States population, and it's 25, but they have 25% of the homeless just in that one state. Now, to be fair, those stats, I didn't go get those stats from the Census Bureau. I got that from politicians who were debating amongst each other, and they were describing the problems. I was watching the gubernatorial debate, the Californian gubernatorial debate, and all the different politicians who were running against each other kept spitting out all these stats about how bad of a place, or excuse me, how bad of a shape that California was in. So that's where I got those numbers from. So you can challenge them if you want. But anyway, the whole idea is that California claims to be the most inclusive, progressive place, but they have an exorbitant number of homeless people living there. Now, anytime we have a large-scale problem like homelessness or domestic abuse or something like that, it's never really just a simple solution of let's do one thing and everything else will change. These things happen and become epidemics because of a myriad of different reasons. So I'm not trying to say that one thing would be a simple fix, but think about this. If people were putting forth the idea that wealthy people are oppressing others and, people are poor because the wealthy is oppressing them. If people were putting forth the idea that wealthy businessmen only need X amount of money to survive, and therefore we should raise the taxes on them because they have plenty to spare, then logically, California shouldn't have as much of a homeless problem as they do, because California is like the richest state. Like one of the people, again, one of their own politicians said that California has the 5th highest GDP in the world, meaning that their income in their economy, the economy in California is ranked 5th in the world, and they're just one state. So that's how much money they got coming in and out. I mean, it's a hotbed for celebrities, all kind of celebrities. I mean, think about it. You got right now. You're talking about LeBron James wants to come there for business, and you got athletes that want to come there, not even just to play for teams, but just for the business aspect of it. You have Hollywood. You have the Silicon Valley. Like that is, it's a rich place. It's a wealthy place. But yet they still have all this homeless. And if if liberals, especially when it comes to rich liberal politicians who have a net worth of billions of dollars or millions of dollars, if they genuinely cared as much about homeless people as they claim to, then they have the money to actually go do something about it. But they choose to take a more corporate route or government-based route to solve it. Now, let me ask you this: what would be a faster way to help homeless people in California? Would it be voting for politicians who are on board and who take that seriously, and then trying to pass laws, and then trying to come up with proper programs for housing and all that stuff? Not saying that they don't exist. But let's say somebody said, I want to take this on. I want to take on this task, and I'm going to start investing time and energy into this. So going the government route, and then you have to have things built, and then you have to get the funds from the government and all of that. Like, which one? All right, so compare that route, the government policy route, versus a wealthy person with millions of dollars simply buying buying a property and designating it for, homeless people or whatever. Or, since many of these people live in mansions, taking a few homeless people in themselves. Which one will be a faster way to help homeless people? And it's the personal route. Because when you go through the government route, you got to go through all this red tape. You got to go through all of these regulations and rules and all of this stuff, which I'm not saying that those things are wrong. I'm not saying that they're bad. They exist for a reason. Some of them for bad reasons, but generally it's to protect people and to protect the government's money. So you can take, these bugs are killing me. Let me get out of here in a second. But let's take Tyler Perry, and I'm not bashing him. I'm just picking a name out of the hat. Let's take Tyler Perry. I'm going to say Nancy Pelosi because she's actually a senator for California and she's filthy rich. Let's take Tyler Perry, Nancy Pelosi, and let's take Oprah. Now, Oprah, I don't know if she's from California or not. I'm just picking names out of the hat of wealthy people who tend to be liberals. Now, Oprah does do a lot of charity, but I'm going to use her anyway. Let's take Oprah, Pelosi, and who's the other person I said? Tyler Perry. What will be quicker for them to amass their money, to hire some private lawyers and whoever else it takes to create programs and things like that? Would it be quicker for them to do that on their own? Or would it be quicker for them to fight the government and fight via the government and fight via the legislative system and dealing with senators and representatives and passing laws and having to raise taxes to get funds and which one? It's a very simple answer. It'd be much easier if you took every wealthy person who speaks out about injustice on a regular basis. If you take every wealthy person who does that, as a matter of fact, if you take every person in general who does that, whether they're wealthy or not, you take every person who speaks out against injustice and economic oppression, all of that, and you have them taking one homeless person, how would that affect the numbers of the homeless? It wouldn't completely solve it because people tend to be homeless for a lot of different reasons. Everyone's not the same. But just think of how much of an impact that would have. But that's not what people do. In fact, most of the people who advocate for it don't do anything themselves in terms of personal charity or personal hospitality. Now, people can appeal to the Bible and say, well, the government should do this for people because of the Bible. But when you read the Bible, when the Bible talks about charity, it's talking about a personal thing. It's not talking about the Bible. Nowhere in the Bible is it saying, okay, maybe you can argue in the Old Testament theocracy of Israel. But if you want to appeal to that for how the government should run, you got problems because you got to deal with what it says about homosexuality and all of that other stuff. Let's just say in the New Testament structure or the New Testament church or whatever, there's nothing in there that talks about government. In fact, it says that we should submit and respect the government. Now, people will take scriptures where it's talking about individuals and how they ought to be charitable to one another and love one another. And they say this is how the government should operate. But they don't even take that upon themselves for that's how they should operate. It's like they've completely shifted from what the biblical meant, which was you yourself. Hey, you right there. You guy right there. This is how you're supposed to treat people. And this is how you are supposed to be charitable. They ignore that. And then they turn it into, the Bible says, give to everyone who has need and that sort of thing. And they're thinking, yeah, we need to start a government program for that. Because again, it's minimal involvement, minimal investment, minimal intrusion into their own lives. And then they can sit there and pat themselves on the back saying, oh, I care about homeless people because I advocate for the government to spend someone else's money on it. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Think of it this way. And then I'm going to wrap up with this. Let's say I have the means. We always have the means to do something. But let's say there's a little league basketball. Let's just say there's a little league basketball league in my neighborhood, and half the players have shoes that are falling apart, right? And let's say I'll go around saying, well, these people need shoes, and people need to take care of them, and somebody should do something. Why are the kids walking around with shoes falling off? They're going to get injured, blah, 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 blah. So suppose I say all that, and I say we need to start a fund, right? So I go around trying to start a fund, and I'm trying to start like a government thing. Like, this way, no kids will ever have to play, no underprivileged kids will ever have to play basketball and risk their safety with inadequate wear, right? And then I guarantee you somebody was just say, bro, just go buy them some sneaks. Now, housing, it's obviously, it's a very different thing. It's more complex, and it's more of a, it can be a cycle. So it's I'm not trying to say they're the same exact thing. I'm talking about the simplicity of it and the mindset behind it. I can get together. Heck, even if I barely only have enough money to live off and a little bit to enjoy on the side, I can take that little bit that I enjoy on the side and go and buy two pair of Payless basketball sneaks for some kids. That's not what people do. They simply want to tell the government what to do with your money, and they think that that's the same thing as them being charitable themselves. You should be wary of any politician or any celebrity that talks about wealthy people and how they're greedy and how wealthy people have more than enough and they're not sharing. If that person himself is wealthy, you got to be wary of that, because what they're seeing is they're kind of giving you something where it's like, okay, look at the other people. Don't look at me. Look at the other people and deal with them, but don't come at me. So I don't know. Just think about that. Just when people advocate for stuff, when people advocate for homeless or poor people, or well, those are the two main things I'm thinking about. Or just when people that are in need, do they tackle those things personally with their personal time and their time and money, or do they try to get the government to spend someone else's money on it?